Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Excited for today's guest. This is very, very unique. He's the CEO and co-founder of Partner Driven. And what they do is they help people by doing real estate deals with them. They provide the training, technology, fund the deals 100%. And when they sell the property, they split the profits 50-50. Very excited to be rocking out today with Peter Vekselman. Hey, Peter, you ready to rock?
Ready to go, Tim. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. So we start off on a good note here. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
I think my biggest success really overall in life, Tim, I'll be honest with you, came with the worst part of my life, war in business. Took me about 6 months to lose everything I had when I came into real estate, literally wiped me out. 2 months later, I was literally, living out of my own car. And just by accident, I had stumbled on two things. One, an apartment building. Up to that point, and believe it or not, since that point, I very rarely do apartments. It's almost all houses. So I had stumbled upon an apartment building totally by accident at a Waffle House, was sitting with the owner at the counter. And two, the very next day, I stumbled on a guy named Barton, who ultimately became my first mentor. And 3 years later, from being homeless, that night, I did my first apartment building, and it was a quick turn and got myself out of that mess. And 3 years from that point on, out of meeting Barton basically the same day, I made my first $1 million. So the reason I consider those two success stories, or basically one day of success stories, this is my whole philosophy. You just never quit. You just never stop. You never slow down. As long as you're willing to be in the game, there's always that shot of coming across that one right opportunity.
Yeah, you bet. Never quit, right?
Never quit.
And that's the thing. I mean, with enough of tenacity, that's pretty much the story you hear from everybody who's had success. They were just about ready to quit, right?
Yep. That's exactly right. Exactly right.
So, we pair that with the bad note, and I mean, I think you already kind of did, but maybe you can share with us another situation that didn't go as planned, and how you got through it, and how we can get through it.
I'll tell you, it's kind of a little bit funny, but there's definitely a lesson to be learned. One of the things that happens to entrepreneurs, I think, is they don't really understand the scope of the businesses they get into. Everyone understands the concepts. I'm starting a dry cleaning, I'm opening a band, I'm going to be in real estate, but nobody understands every single, intricate detail involved with that business. And as we know, it's those details that in the end can drive us out. And so I remember about a long time ago, now about 15 years or so, I also became a private lender for other real estate investors, where I would actually lend money out to them. And I remember, and I had one partner, his name was Bob, and I remember calling Bob. He was more the field guy, I was more the office guy. And I'm like, dude, sounds like you're throwing up. He's like, oh, I'm throwing up, all right. I go, what's going on? And back then, we would actually front people money. We were charging them pretty high interest rates. So to do that, we had to do some unusual things. So we would front them rehab money ahead of time. Anyway, make a long story short, we had fronted this borrower of ours $50,000, and he accidentally fixed the wrong house. And when Bob came there, and remember, we were borrowing this money ourselves, from here and lending it out here. And so we were on the hook for that $50,000. And that turned out to be a pretty darn big horror story. But again, out of everything bad, you always have to have something good. We learned, and as every entrepreneur has to understand, you have to have some checks and balances in your models and your systems. You have to have some continuity to them. You have to have procedures set in place, because ultimately, the upside about being your own boss, your own entrepreneur, everybody knows that. Everybody knows the upside that's possible. But I will also tell you, not too many people realize all the potential downsides that come along with being entrepreneurs. And one of the big things I learned from that kind of disaster, that $50,000 disaster, you got to have your checks and balances in place.
Wow. That is a crazy story. How did you what did you do? Like,
I tell you, it's very interesting. We didn't end up losing the whole 50,000. We lost some money in that deal, but we found something very interesting. What was happening is we were fixing the wrong house, It turns out the owner of that house, who did not live there, right? But he would drive by there and he saw what was going on. And we had proof that that was happening. This all happened now in the rear end. And we had proof that he was driving by. So we learned there's actually a law that exists that if someone starts fixing your house and you're aware of it and you don't stop them, that's your acknowledgement that you have to pay him for the work. So we weren't able to get the recoup the whole 50, but we learned that kind of a quirky law, and we were able to recoup a pretty decent amount of it.
I was actually wondering how that was going to work out. Yeah, because I thought maybe the homeowner kind of looked at it and went, thanks a lot for this. We needed that work anyway. Here's some money. But so he did try to get out of it then.
He did it first, but then again, once we get the powers to be, and those are attorneys involved, we'll learn that just kind of this obscure law that none of us knew about. And so again, we didn't recoup the whole 50, Tim, but we recoup a decent amount of it.
Wow. And this is one of those things, that's why I like to talk about the bad note, because it's just so unexpected. There's something that's going to happen in just about every business that you're not going to see coming, and it's going to be weird. And, there's always a way out of it though, right?
Well, two ways of looking at it. That's the right way to look at it. But you and I both know a lot of times why people don't become successful is they just choose not to. Because you're right, almost anything that you're still standing and you're breathing afterwards, there's ways to get out of it. You might not get out of it whole. You may not make money on something. You might not be a win for you, but there's almost always a way. And that's really the kind of, you could say, a pseudo definition of success, right? Are you going to let the crap get in the way? And unfortunately, when you talk to people that have been down the pathway of success but never made it, the story is almost always the same. This happened, that happened, that happened, this happened, this happened. And they just, somewhere along the line, they quit. You just can't quit. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting that I've found anyways, when you do talk about people that did quit, their reason for quitting is so much less than some of the reasons that people succeeded, right? That big thing there, somebody screwed me out of $50 and I just thought, this isn't for me. Meanwhile, you're talking about 50,000, right?
I kind of say what you just said. I paraphrase it a little bit. And, people always say, well, how do I keep going? I'm out of money. I'm out of time. I'm out of support. My husband wants me out. My wife wants me out. Usually usually the reason people quit is it's a lack of capital and a lack of time, whatever the endeavor is. And I tell them a little bit what you said. I kind of turn it upside down a little bit. I said, your reason to keep going has to be bigger than your reason to quit. And that's another issue I find, Tim, with people. A lot of times people get started in things, whatever that is, and they don't know why they're doing it. They're just like, well, I want to make more money. That's never going to get you successful. Well, you know what I mean? So I always tell people in those initial stages of going for it, entrepreneurship, pathway to success, you really, really have to dwell down and really seriously figure out why you're doing this. Because along the way, and by the way, across the board, you will always want to quit. Heck, when I got started 22 years ago in real estate, I think I quit every day for a couple of years. I mean, literally, I was out. I didn't really physically walk out, but I was quitting and quitting. But again, the reason to stay has to be bigger than the reason to quit.
Yep. And I could back that up. There have been days that I wanted to quit too, especially in the very beginning. And,
Sure.
As time goes on, those days become longer in between, I guess. And now I barely think about it. I mean, now I'm good, right? But
that's it. I mean, that really, the bottom line is that's reality of success. You got to hang on long enough, and it's, obviously you've been through the journey, and isn't it crazy, like watching or seeing other people, and it's like you could see how close they get. I always tell people it's like that, that spotter and the race car driver, right? The race car driver only sees the car ahead of him. The spotter who's on top, he sees the whole track, and it's amazing to me. And I get involved a lot with entrepreneurs. It is amazing to me how many times I see people get close, but they literally just see, that next day, that current problem, that bad thing that just happened, and just don't see a little bit past that. But yeah, success ain't rocket science, is what I tell people. It really isn't.
No, and I think that people define success incorrectly a lot of times. They define it in terms of money. And I mean, let's face it, I don't think there's very many entrepreneurs that do it for the money, because they probably never would have gotten to the point where they're making money. Because in the beginning, there has to be some sort of other, fire burning that's making you want to do this. Maybe it's for lifestyle, maybe it's for, I don't know what it is, but everybody's got their own reason, and it's usually not money, right?
Well, and here's the other thing to expand upon that. Most people have no idea how to evaluate their journey to success, because they literally do. Well, I'm not making money, so that must mean I'm off track. I haven't closed the deal, that means I'm off track. I haven't been booked for that gig with $100,000 in audience, so I'm off track. They have no idea that especially in the beginning, I mean, all the way through the process, but especially in the beginning, your measurement of progress, your measurement of success can't be what you think it is. Is it okay? Tell me more about in the beginning, it's really more activity based. Are you doing the things that you need to be doing to move forward? You may not have your first deal done in a month or two. Well, that is not a measure of success. How many people have you contacted? How much things are you doing? So that's the other big problem with entrepreneurs. They literally have no idea how to measure where they are and on track. And this is along the lines why I always tell people, you got to connect with someone. You have to align yourself with someone, because you probably don't know how to do a lot of things, including evaluate if you're on track, off track. Because you could also flip it on the upside down, right? You could think, oh, I'm dead on track. And next thing you know, 8 months goes by, you have zero to show for anything. As a matter of fact, you've just gone backwards, and you may be off track. So it's always important to have those checks and balances, not only inside the business, but checks and balances for you personally set up. And usually in some kind of an alignment relationship,
Right.
So those are important things also.
Right on. Well, this leads basically into the next section, which is about practicing, because that's part of it. How do you continue to get good at what you do? How do you measure that progress?
Well, when it comes to things like practice and getting better, the example I always use is, I use athletics because most of us have at least exposure to athletics. And you look at the top people in the world, and you never hear or see a team, an individual that just shows up at games. That just doesn't happen. They are literally they spend way more time practicing, perfecting their craft, getting better. And I think that's a thing that's lost in a lot of people. I remember a couple of years back, a buddy of mine, he was in real estate, still in real estate. He was a realtor. So I'm an investor. He's a realtor. And I walk into his office. Now, he was the top realtor in the nation in terms of average agent that worked for him. He was a broker. Average agent that worked for him had over 20 listings. That's unheard of. That's like picking up a guitar today and tomorrow playing at Wembley Stadium. That stuff just doesn't happen. And he had like over 50 agents at over 20 listings. I remember walking into his office at like 6 or 7 in the morning, and there were all these desks set up. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Well, he goes, and remember, these are the top people in the country, in the world, probably at their craft. He said, every day we get together for an hour or two and we practice the scripts. And when it comes to being a realtor and scripts, it is not rocket science. It is usually a 3-minute conversation. And now you think of the top, every day spend an hour practicing basically 3 or 5 minute pitch. How important is perfecting your craft? I mean, it's absolutely, and that goes along with education. You should always level up. You should always know more about what you do. You should become, if you want to be good at something, I think very few people are good at something if they and are not subject matter experts at it. You're going to find very few people at the top of their game, and then you realize they know nothing about what they're doing. That just doesn't happen. But you're going to find plenty of people at the bottom of their game. They have no concept of what they're doing. And those are the people that really need the education, the training, the practice. And it's amazing how few those people will do it, because they're looking for that shiny object, that shortcut, that something doesn't exist. Whereas the guys and the people at the top, it's they're still grinding it out. They're getting better. They're getting better at what they do.
Right on. No, and it's the same in music as well. I mean, it's all about, I think that it's about practicing the fundamentals over and over again.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't really help you much to, you know, go find one of the best solos out there and try to practice that every day. You're not going to be able to, you can only play that one thing, I guess, is what it comes down to. You can't roll with the punches. And a lot of times, I mean, I'm sure that's why they practice the sales pitch over and over again, because you got to get that down so that it is unconscious, right?
You know, a few years ago, I wrote kind of like an ebook, and the title of it was "You Have to Become Brilliant at the Basics." And you know, we're saying kind of the same thing over and over again. But you know, even in real estate, which is a huge business, overwhelming business, tons of things. After doing this for 2 decades, Tim, I still only do basically 2 things. You know, but I would say I'm better at those 2 things than almost anyone in the country and the nation. Yeah, you gotta, I always, another way I say what we're talking about, you know, there's 2 ways. This is where people mess up. There's 2 ways to grow. There's what's called horizontal growth. And that's the guy that's trying, you know, he's got 60 plates spinning. He's not really good at anything, but he's always, and then there's vertical growth. That's the guy that kind of figures out 1 or 2 things and he just gets better and better and better and better. So personally, I'm all about that vertical growth, all about that vertical growth.
Hi, my name is Anik Malenfant from Mastering Ascension, and I've been working with Tim Melanson and the Creative Crew Agency for a number of years now. Tim is my go-to guy for all things technology, and his team have helped me to really create the platform that I need that represents my brand, my message, and connects me directly to my ideal clients. What I particularly love about Tim is before he starts to dive into the technology, he always makes sure that he understands what your global view is, what your ultimate goals are. So then that way you're not wasting a lot of time back and forth switching around technology or platforms. He creates something from the get-go that is scalable, which is highly, highly beneficial for any business. What I've experienced from Tim and his team is they're highly responsive. They are a wealth of information, and they're going to offer you the tools that you need to really make the mark that you want to make in the world. So that's my recommendation for Tim. He's awesome. You're going to love every minute. You won't regret it.
So let's talk a little bit about the band, about team building. So what's your approach to, you know, getting the right people around you?
Number one, it's critical. It's critical. And I'll tell you why it's critical. And again, it doesn't matter if you're a band guy or a real estate guy or a franchise guy. I always tell people the reason that most people want to level up in life, 1 of 2 factors. They want to make more money, or they want to have a better lifestyle. You know, no matter what the reasons are, they tend to fall in one of those 2 categories. And when it comes to making money, yes, you can make a lot of money doing a lot of things yourself. There is no question. I mean, we all know people that are very successful who make a lot of money, and they are just like, you could literally say that as a 1-person show. But I always tell people, if you want that as a side, which, by the way, in my opinion, is even more important, the lifestyle side, the time control side. On that side of the equation, it's all the ability to leverage yourself. And really, when I say leverage yourself, it's all about developing teams around you. It's all about developing infrastructure around you. It's all about surrounding yourself with the right people. You know, I tell people a very interesting stats. You know, if somebody were to ask me in the street, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm a real estate investor. Hey, when was the last time you saw a deal? 7 years ago. And it never computes. Like, to them, it makes 0 sense. But in those 7 years, I bought over 1,000 properties. And to them, they like it, the 2, how can you not see what you're doing? Well, because many years ago, I bought into this concept. You're only as good as the people around you. And so every day I'm doing real estate deals, and every day I'm enjoying an incredible lifestyle along the way. So this whole premise of the ability to develop a team, the ability to put the right people in place and then let them do what they do, you know, not micromanage anything like that. It's critical. That's, as far as I could tell, at least in the things I've done, Tim, that's the only way to create a lifestyle for you. Only way to create a lifestyle.
So how do you find these people that are incredible, and how do you, I don't know, motivate them or inspire them to, you know, work for you, I guess?
You know, when people ask me what I do, as I mentioned, I'm a real estate investor. Haven't personally looked at a deal in 7 years. So that's always the follow-up question. Well, what the heck do you do with yourself? And that is exactly what I do with myself, Tim. I am always, always connecting with people. That step never stops. I might have a conversation like we're having right now 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. And or get my name out there 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. And in the end, it's for 2 reasons: to spread the message of what I do, but also to connect with the right people. It is not easy. But you have to go. Number one, at the very initial conception of how do you find the right person, I'm past the interviews, the testing. That's all. Like, who's ever had an interview that goes like this? Well, yeah, I'm pretty bad at this stuff. I don't think it's going to work, but go ahead and hire me, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm past all that. How I make my decisions around, when I'm talking about now my own team, in the beginning, I tend to make decisions based upon who wants it the most. I found in my life that when I bring people into my world of people that want to be there, they, not always, but they tend to be the ones that work out the best.
Wow.
Number 2, there has to be some kind of vision in place. And they have to buy into the vision. If your vision is to go out there and conquer 30 different countries, there's a lot of people who are not going to buy into that vision. If your vision is to, my world, your world, you're in a world of bands and music, I'm in a world of real estate. So a lot of times people that would buy into my vision would not buy into your vision, and vice versa. You're more of a artsy, and stuff like that. So you got to find people that buy into your vision. I think environment is very important. People tend to overlook the environment they create for people around them. So to me, that's a big thing. And then the other thing is, and this is one thing that I pride myself, kind of my inner team's been, all of them's been with me over 10 years. You have to learn how to keep people. That's the key, because good people are always going to be thought after. There's always going to be more opportunities for the good people. So you really, really need to figure out how to keep them. And that is a combination of everything I just said. That's a combination of environment. That's a combination of the vision. Obviously, a financial component has to be in there. And I know there's different philosophies about this. I'm not a micromanager. I think in the end, adults want to be treated like adults. And, my team definitely keeps me posted through this thing, the cell phone. But and there's times where I come in and help make decisions and all that, but they know they have the latitude to not only make decisions, but they have the latitude to sometimes make the wrong decision. Wow. And that's important if you want to keep people, that you don't want people that are on pins and needles all the time. You don't want people that lose sleep over their jobs and stuff like that. So I think it's a combination of all of those things, but in the end, lifestyle, not just the financial. The financial, yes, you could go out there and crank it out yourself and all this, but if you're really chasing lifestyle, you've got to chase people, and you got to know how to develop people and build teams around you. Absolutely critical.
Love it. Yeah, and I think a lot of the reason why people have a hard time with this is that they're uncomfortable really showing who they are. They're uncomfortable with turning someone away. They see somebody that's amazing on what they do, but maybe they're just not right. Like, you mentioned the band and the real estate. Hey, you know what? I mean, if I'm trying to get somebody who's a very good real estate agent into my band, they're not going to be,
right.
So I might be trying to impress them and trying to pretend like I'm more of something that I'm not, because I think that they're so good at what they do, but they're not going to be good at what I do. And that's okay. You're better off to just kind of push somebody away and not waste the time having a conversation with somebody. And maybe you can be a connector for them. Maybe there's somebody in your network that they'd be better suited for, right?
I always tell people, I don't put skill set as the number one thing. I do not. I put, like I said, I put wanting to be, I put loyalty, but I think I put skill set right around number 3. You're absolutely right. You cannot overlook, obviously we all want great people in our lives. I mean, who doesn't, right? But to just overlook, and I've done this just based upon wanting somebody and just became blind to the fact that the skill set's just not there. And remember, there's a reason why sometimes skill set's not there. It's not their passion, right? They became great with some other skill set. I mean, it's just kind of common sense. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Somewhere along the line, the skill set the aptitude does have to be there. There's no question.
Yeah. And then that leads to your next point, which was keeping them and treating them like an adult and giving them the ability. Because I think that's another fear that a lot of people have, is that, they think that it's their business. If someone screws up on their dime, well, now they're gonna be in trouble. So they try to help them to not screw up. But that's where we learn, right? Is through the mistakes.
And you got, it's not only that, but it's that piece that I was talking about. You got to give people the flexibility to make mistakes, because they're never going to make any kind of great decisions if they're afraid of making a mistake. Greatness only comes because when you have the ability to fail, you know what I mean? And so that's a big thing that I see a lot of good people leaving pretty decent places, actually, because it's so tight, it's so rigid, it's so unforgiving, it's so black and white. You got to learn how to work in the gray areas. I mean, I'm sure in the world you're in, there's plenty of gray areas. And if you don't know how to sustain yourself in there, if it's just black and white, then it's going to be very tough. It's going to be very tough for you. Can you imagine how that's going to be for a poor employee that's just getting rocking and rolling? That ain't going to work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. And when you're thinking about music is very much in a box in a lot of ways. And really the creativity comes from getting outside of that box. And so if you're always working within the box, you're never going to find real magic, because it's all understandable. It's all in there. As soon as you start to make a mistake, hit a note that you shouldn't have hit, all of a sudden you see, oh, that actually sounded pretty good. Maybe I can do something with that.
Absolutely. And I'm in the same business, real estate, talk about gray areas and the ability to experiment sometimes and try things. It's very, very important. So yeah, totally agree.
Right on. So let's talk a little bit about getting fans. So how do you attract people to your business, as customers?
Doing what we do now, that's really it. Right now I got, as an owner of what I do, I say I have three functions: cash flow, make sure we got the right money. Two, what we just talked about, attracting the right people into our world. And number three, getting the message out. And that's a very, very, very important thing. Now, what I tell people today, we're in totally different world. 22 years ago when I got started, if I wanted somebody to know about me, it would cost me a lot more. It would take a lot more time. You would need a lot more skill set and all this. But in today's world, there's so many different ways of marketing, of getting the message out. One of my favorites, and it's actually our best way right now, is social media. And the reason I'm so excited about it, because a year and a half ago, I had no social media presence, like none. And today, in my world, it is the top. And really, social media, if you basically understand at least the concepts, is not a very expensive media for marketing, for advertising, for getting the word out. But you have to do that. I always tell people, and let's take social media out of it. It is the most critical point of investment of capital in any entrepreneur's world. If I was starting out a business and I had $1,000 to my name, I would say pretty much any business, I'd probably use 95% of it into some kind of a marketing apparatus, because that drives everything. It's where the revenue. It's the thing, unfortunately, that people tend, especially young, not just young, but beginner entrepreneurs, tend to cut the quickest. But it's the thing that needs to be really, really massaged the most. And when it comes to financial investments, that's where your money has to go.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's because the ROI is more complicated to calculate. You can make a sales call and know that you're going to make money from it. But when you're putting out, getting on a podcast, you don't know that you're going to get an actual client out of this, right?
I agree with you. But at this point in today's environment, this is what I tell people who have that philosophy: you're just lost in the weeds, because it's just a no-brainer. It's like saying, I'm not going to get on that train because I don't know how the engine works. And I'm just too afraid we're going to fall off the crack. Okay, if in today's world, you're afraid to get on the train because you don't know how the engine works, you're just, you're 100 years in the rears. And I tell people, because I get that all the time too. Yeah, well, it's hard to measure some of this stuff and all this, but listen, in today's world, it is no longer up for it's not a discussion piece like does it work or it doesn't work. It works. It's just a matter of, are you going to do it or are you not going to do it? But don't let the lack of potential measurement on a one-to-one basis prevent you from making some real money in the end. You know what I mean? That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? I mean, part of it is going back to the fundamentals as well. You're practicing a conversation over and over again that you're going to get better at, and right. It's going to connect with certain people. And it is more of a numbers game. The more you get out there, the more you're going to get back.
It's 100%. I mean, you got to do it. Again, I put that as one of my top 3 functions as in my world of real estate investing, getting the word out and getting the message out. And again, the great thing is about what we're talking about is that today you can literally be starting in a business, sitting in your underwear from your basement, and you have an unfair advantage called internet, social media, that you could start competing with the big boys just like that. That is not something to run away from, that is something to like embrace and stick your hands in the air and say, thank you.
Yeah, speaking to the choir, I'm thinking that this is like a golden age, really, where, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned earlier, 10, 20, 30 years ago, you had to spend a lot of money on TV ads or billboards, yep. or whatever it is. And now you don't even have to buy ads on social media. You can literally do this right. organic if you choose to, right?
Even playing field is what I call it. It equalizes. I could literally compete no matter how big or how small I am. I could literally compete with the big boys now. That's huge. That's huge.
It's huge. So it's time for your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
Well, I do think I have a very exciting thing that we're doing. And, the exciting thing in my business is that we're booming and we're growing. We're kind of in a, we're obviously in a downturn economy, but that's an upturn economy in real estate. As I mentioned to you, I do real estate deals, and my model is very simple. I partner with people across the United States, and we do deals together. But it's what we do in this partnership that really makes everything I do so exciting. I provide them money to do deals. I spend money where they live in their cities and generate leads for them. My back office processes everything, gets contracts done, inspections, closings handled for my partners. Like I said, I give them unlimited capital as much as they want to do as many deals as they want. Our construction outfit gets in there, helps them fix it. We put them in a market, sell them, split the profits down the middle, 50-50. Done 3,600 deals. 100% of all my deals are with partners just like this, for everyday people across the United States who want to level up financially, who want to create huge lifestyles. And literally we're doing more deals now than I have in 22 years in this business just because of what's taking place out there. So it's very exciting all the way across the board. Doing deals in my business is the excitement part.
Right on, Peter. Well, I'm intrigued. So tell me what's the ideal person that would, be a good partner for you?
It's just that somebody that's ready to level up. Somebody's not satisfied, whether their job, their career, their business that's struggling, maybe they want to level up financially and they want to create a bigger lifestyle for themselves, because real estate is one of those things, when done correctly, has those 2 components. Not every business does, by the way, but real estate does. You can make a ton of money in this business, but you could also, if you set it up correctly, and that's where partnering with me gives an ability to do, because we handle so much things for them. You have the ability to create an incredible lifestyle. So for people that want to retire from their jobs, for people who are not satisfied with what they're doing, for people who want a bigger lifestyle, control their time more, those are the people that become my partners.
Wow. So really it's anyone of any walk of life, really.
People that are ready to level up.
Ready to level up. Awesome. Well, then how do we find out more about this then?
Somebody can pop over to my social media. I know my office probably give you some links, but they can go to Instagram.com/my name, Peter Vekselman, which is written there. They can connect with me there. They can shoot me a DM, follow me, click the link on my bio to set up a conversation with me. Or I'm sure there's some links that my office provided for you that you could, put in a description. But pop over to my social media, Peter Vekselman, I'm sorry, Instagram. You could go to instagram.com/Peter Vekselman and kind of get a feel of who I am, what I do, and what I'm about, and connect with me right through there.
Awesome. Right on. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Peter. This has been a lot of fun.
I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Cool. To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment, and we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.